Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video we are going to talk about ChatGPT API and how we could call this API through Node.js. This is in continuation of the Node.js videos that I have been putting through. So kind of a part 11 I would say. But recently people have been talking about ChatGPT and other stuff. So I thought of posting a video where we could actually leverage ChatGPT's API programmatically, whether it is Node or C Sharp or Python. You could use any of the language, and that could help you to programmatically use ChatGPT. Now, before we actually go on to the practical stuff, a little bit introduction of what ChatGPT is all about. The full form of ChatGPT is Generative Pre-trained Transformer, and this is more likely a field of AI and artificial intelligence, and it is based upon a large language model under the natural language processing systems. If you have studied any AI based course, even the introduction, you might have studied about natural language processing systems. So, LLM is actually a part of the natural language processing based systems. Fundamentally, I cannot go much more into detail because that would be beyond the scope of this video, and we are technically going on to learn how to call the ChatGPT API programmatically, and the intent of the video is not exactly what ChatGPT is all about, right? So these are the fundamentals you should know, and it is based upon the deep learning science. There are multiple disciplines under AI where we could go for, but this is based upon the deep learning science, and it is developed by OpenAI. So that's one of the use cases out here for us to use, and they have given us the APIs. We could of course use Bing, as Microsoft has invested some money into this. They are actually promoting it. We could use the Bing one to actually do a messaging kind of a system, but in this particular video we are actually going to use how we could invoke the ChatGPT's API through a Node.js code. So in order to use the ChatGPT's API, we'll firstly go on to the API ai.com, and in order to use this we need to create one account over here. I've already created an account. The account could be a free one where you have a limited services that's based upon ChatGPT's 3.5, and you could have a paid model also where you would typically charge you like $20 USD dollars a month for using ChatGPT's 4.0. It's a subscription model. So once you sign it up, you actually log in, and because I've already logged in, so you would get three services out here. This one is more likely ChatGPT, where you get an interface to actually use and then ask the ChatGPT questions, and it would respond you back in the pre-generative AI model. And this is the one. This video is concentrated on the API model, so we'll go on to the API. Now, before you could use API, you would have to actually use and see the keys out here. Now the keys are technically without a key you cannot call an API. It's just like a security mechanism which is there. It's a kind of a secret out here. I have already generated this key, but I'm gonna like use the same key within my code. Of course that's not the right way of like using the keys directly, which I'll be putting it into the code. You would use like the best practices would be to use environmental variables or other configuration options to store your secret or everything, but for the demonstration purpose, and I'm not using it for anything else, so I'll be deleting this key once it's being used. So let's try using this, and let's try see how we could use this API key. I've already stored this API key. Once you create it, you could create a new API key, but remember always, once you create it, the key is only available to you one time. Once it is done, it is just acted as a kind of a secret for you, so you cannot see that. So let's see, friends, how we could practically use the ChatGPT's API to actually call a Hello World kind of a program. Now in this Hello World program, I'm gonna use to demonstrate will ask ChatGPT how many, let's say, continents are there. You could ask any question, it would just respond, but I'm just giving a very basic example of a continents. So how many continents are there? We'll ask this question to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is going to respond back to our question based upon the pre-trained model they have. So let's try writing this. This is the key which I saved it, so it's already there. But before that, it's not a good practice. I'll again repeat it. It's not a good practice to type in keys directly out here, but this is only for the demonstration purpose. So that's why I've just pasted out here for demonstrating the same. Now, there are a couple of things which I'll need it. Now, for example, I'll need a configuration and I'll need an OpenAI package. Now, once it is done, let's say OpenAI, I need that package, that's fine. So configuration and OpenAI, so that's one. And the next thing is I want to use this configuration to be used. So let's say we'll just use const configuration is equal to, I'll say, new of configuration. And within this, I'm just gonna pass an API key as a key, and then I'm just gonna use that as ChatGPT key because that's the value which I have. So that's how I'm setting up the configuration. Now I just want to set up OpenAI is equal to new of OpenAI API, and then I need to pass on the configuration because that's the way it would be talking to that API in order to make sure whatever I need to call the API with some data to be sent, it would invoke that and use it to return some kind of a message out here. Now let's create a function. So for example, hello world ChatGPT API. This is a small function which we'll create. Now within that function, I'm just gonna call OpenAI. I'll use that and I'll say create chat completion. I just want to use a chat completion, which is technically used for sending a message to the OpenAPI's ChatGPT, and it would actually listen to that, it would actually use that, and then it would respond me back with a generative text for the same. Now there are a couple of things which we need to pass it out here. One is the model. So the model is technically which model of the what you call as the base framework we are using. There are different models out here, but we are going to use GPT hyphen 3.5 and then DAW hyphen turbo. So that's the one, GPT hyphen 3.5 hyphen turbo. So that's the one which I'm gonna use, and I'm gonna pass on, I can pass on different messages in the form of an array, but fundamentally in this one we are going to just pass on one. So my role is going to be user out here, and I'm going to pass on a content which is, let's say, how many continents are there in the world. So let's say this is my question, so that's what I'm passing on. So that's what is my second parameter. There are other couple parameters, but I'm not gonna pass on that. That's beyond the scope of like the context of this video. This is a very simple explanation of invoking the API, ChatGPT's API through the Node.js. Now once it is done, it would actually return me a dot then promise, and let's say I'll just use a response, and once the response is there, I could actually use it, and I would say console.log, and I would say just put in on the response. Now it actually gives me an object called as response object with the data and choices. So choices is the one which actually gives you the response back by the ChatGPT when we invoke it. Now this function looks fine to us. It's a simple function. We are just asking about how many let's say the continents are there in the world. This is a simple question we are asking, and then we are going to get the response from that particular ChatGPT's API model. Now let's call this function also, hello world ChatGPT API. Okay, so let's try running it in the terminal window, Now, before you could actually run this, if I show you, you need to install one of the OpenAPI's NPM package. So I'll just say npm install OpenAI. Now, once I install that, this is done. And friends, we have to make one change over here. I actually accidentally typed OpenAPI, which is a small case just like this one. No, we have to actually use the package, which is the library. We are importing it out. And once it is done, so we could use this OpenAPI as our normal variable to actually initialize, use this package class library to call different methods and finally do that. Now, because as we have already installed that package out here, so what we could do in this case is let me just do a clear, and now if I just want to call node let's say chat gpt hello world .js. So once I call this, it actually makes a OpenAPI call, connects it out, and then finally it gives me, yes, there are 7 continents in the world, they are this. So if you see, this is the message that has been responded back by the ChatGPT's model API, and this was in response to the content that was being given out here. So you could think about, you could ask any another question, and then it would kind of let you know that the response to that, and then typically that's how you could use it. You could use some kind of a logic to ask a repetitive questions, or let's say a question in response to an answer given by the chat GPT or something like that. Now, even let's say if I want to change this question, let's say capital, what is the capital of Canada? So let's say that's my question, and if I just clear that, call this one more time, so it tries to roll the capital of Canada is Ottawa. So that's how it works around the message I get. This is the role of the assistant. Assistant is actually the chat GPT, which is actually acting as an assistant to me. I'm asking questions and is giving me answer to that. So that's how you're calling an API, which makes sense. It helps you to kind of programmatically call that API within Node.js. I hope, guys, this would give you a head start in terms of programming. This is not a video on artificial intelligence and what are the details of that. There are so many other videos which you could possibly watch, but this one is more likely as a programmatical experience, how you could invoke a chat GPT's 3.5 free API to ask questions and get response to that. So I hope, guys, you would like this video and kind of start your journey with the with the chat GPT. I'll be coming back with more videos, so please stay tuned and do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.